Recently, I put out a video about my favorite multiplayer mechanic, and in that video, I talk about my Grenzo goad deck. I'll leave a card to that if you want to check out that video. So this video is all about that Grenzo deck that I mentioned. Grenzo, in my opinion, is a massively underrated commander, and also really underutilized. On EDHREC, most of the decks are goblin decks, which I don't think is a good way to build them. For starters, he doesn't actually synergize with goblins, and there are really good goblin commanders out there, so I don't see why you would play Grenzo. So Grenzo Havoc Raiser is red for a 2/2 goblin rogue. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, choose one. Goad target creature that player controls, or exile the top card of their library until end of turn. You may cast that, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So this card is really powerful. Because of the way it's worded, if you have multiple creatures hit an opponent, you can trigger that effect multiple times and goad 3 creatures or take the top 3 cards of their deck. My deck is built around a theme that Red has had for a really long time. Power 2 or less matters. Break Through the Lines is a really good example here. Not only does it give haste, but also unblockable. Imperial Recruiter is another card that also cares about power 2 or less, and is a really good tutor in this deck. And this deck makes great use of all the red attack triggers you get from these unblockable effects. Cards like Stigma Lasher are really good. They permanently shut off life gain for your opponent. Or cards like Professional Facebreaker, which turns that damage into treasures. Also, creatures like Elturel Survivors are great here because they have 0 power until it attacks. So you can give it unblockable with Break Through the Lines and then slam in for huge damage. And all these unblockable creatures chipping in just get even better with Grenzo because you're turning that into either goading any threatening creatures or just straight card advantage. This deck has lots of ways to let your creatures get through, not just Break Through the Lines. Really fun cards like Bedlam, which just stops any creature from blocking, and also War Cadence, which is a very strange card, but it works super well in this deck because you can use it during an opponent's turn to make the goaded creatures difficult to block. This deck has a few other goad cards in it too. Disrupt Decorum is a classic and a great way to just get a ton of damage through. Although I feel like Spectacular Showdown is oftentimes a better finisher. Giving double strike to those creatures can really crank up the damage. Also, Death Kiss is a really often overlooked goad card. Not only can it do some goading by itself, but it also powers up anytime an opponent attacks someone else. So even without goading, it does incentivize players to attack someone other than you. To round out the deck, there are some mono red value cards. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is great for filtering, ramp, copying stuff. This card kind of does everything. It's sort of ridiculous. Visions of Phyrexia for some card advantage, and then some late game haymakers. Itali is really good in tandem with anything that can give it haste, and although there are no combos for it, Underworld Breach is still a great late game value piece. And that's most of the deck. It's a lot of fun to play. Forcing people to attack and chipping in with small creatures is a strategy that we don't see much in EDH. Aggro decks in Commander are not super powerful, so you're not going to be pub stomping with this, which is fine. It's a good casual deck. This deck is a huge blast to play. Usually involves a lot of politicking, especially from your opponents as they're deciding who to attack their goaded creatures with. I'll put a link in the description to my current list so you can take a look at the full deck. Let me know if you have any suggestions or any other questions about the deck. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more Magic content.